If there's one thing I've learned, it's that getting outside is always worth it, no matter the weather. Welcome to Humans Outside, where we're building a life around spending time in nature while learning from fascinating outdoor-minded guests. I'm Amy Bouchatz, a journalist originally from the beach in California, now working to love nature from my home in Alaska. Since September 2017, I've spent at least 20 consecutive minutes outside every single day, no matter what. Ready to hear from experts and outdoor lovers who make heading into nature just a part of who they are while we work to do the same? Let's go! There are a few people in my life who have occupied an important seat through much of my journey. Holly Wise is one of those people. Holly and I met in 2004 as I was fresh out of college and attending a journalism course in Washington, D.C. We went our separate ways, but have remained close friends, our lives and careers and families growing and shaping over time and often in parallel. Holly is my good ideas friend, my sounding board for career projects, and an adventure buddy. While our journeys for a long time focused on career, they've also grown in parallel with our relationships to nature. It was Holly who helped me come up with the name Humans Outside when getting outside was something I was just first starting to do in 2014. Holly's courage to pivot with life gave me the courage to move to Alaska. And when she came to hang out with me in 2017, it was Holly who helped me come up with my 20 minutes daily challenge that is what we know as Humans Outside today. This summer, when I marked 1,400 days of going outside every single day for at least those 20 minutes, I knew I wanted to talk about it here on the podcast, but I wanted to do it as one of my interview episodes. What better way than to ask Holly, my fellow journalist, to interview me for an episode? And so here she is, Holly Wise, interviewing me.
So I would like to have this conversation, Amy, imagining that we are hanging out together in your favorite outdoor space. And I want to ask you the same question that you've asked all your guests on Humans Outside. And that question is, where are we today?
What a novel question. I like it. When I asked you to do this, I thought, I wonder if she's going to ask me the questions that I always ask everybody. So I am semi-prepared. Okay. So my favorite space is, no surprise, in Alaska. And my goodness, there are so many of them. But the place that I like to go and think and spend time talking with other people is a place actually you and I have been together, and it is in Seward, Alaska. There are these fantastic benches on this walking path. So we are sitting there, we are looking out over Resurrection Bay at these mountains that just come exploding out of the ocean. They've got some little bit of snow-capped action going on, and they're otherwise green, and it is a gorgeous, beautiful, perfect Seward day.
That definitely takes me back to that trip from 4 years ago, which is hard to believe that it's been that long, and makes me anxious to get back to Alaska so that we can be there together physically again. I know that most of the people in the Humans Outside community have learned about your outdoor daily habit and challenge over the years to spend 20 consecutive minutes outside every day. Some, I'm sure, have watched from the sidelines. Others have jumped in to do it with you. And probably all of us have asked lots of questions along the way, like, why 20 minutes? How do you make time for it? Does it ever get boring? But the question I want to ask you right now is, what is the question that no one's asking? And how would you answer that?
Ooh, that's you little question asker, you. So so I think I've been spending a lot of time thinking about the hidden drivers of this, the things that are beyond just the obvious, like I wanted to make my health better. I wanted to see what the outdoors could do. And things that are more tied to discovering who I am, things that I didn't even know I was doing outside. So maybe the question is, what are you learning that's outside of the realm of what you expected? So it's more than a question about why are you doing it. It's more of a question about um, what is on the periphery of what you're doing. Why are you doing it that you didn't even know was a reason?
Hmm. So what are some of the lessons then that you've learned over the last 4 years that you've been doing this challenge?
I think I've learned a lot about the reasons I didn't even know exist. Um, I come from a background, a family of addicts. If you one of the addict recovery tools is to make a family tree and to really map out all of the various and sundry addictions in your family. And if I was to think about this, my goodness, there are so many people in my family tree are addicts of some kind. And so spending out time outside for me is a lot about recovery from those toxic and addictive behaviors and channeling that into something that's healthy, into something that has these uncharted areas where there's just boundless stuff to learn about yourself and things to explore and ways to grow. There is never anything that I do outside that does not result in some sort of growth and in some sort of new revelation that I didn't even see coming. There are days where I think, oh, here we are again doing something hard. Yeah, yes. Like you and I were talking today before we started recording, and I just came back from a training run and it was raining, raining, raining. It poured for almost 16 miles. And there were times that I thought, the only way to be wetter than this is to actually be in a pool because I am so wet right now. But even in that moment, I was thinking about the value of doing hard things, the things that I was learning about myself, being uncomfortable right then, the skills I was gaining by being a little cold, by literally moving through, by not having a choice but to move through because I was, so many miles from home. Like if you want to go home and be warm, you're going to have to get yourself there. Um, I my some okay guys, sometimes I do call my husband and have him come pick me up, but that wasn't an option today. Uh and so I've learned to find these corners of myself and pull out from there things that I didn't even see coming and I didn't even know was an option of something to learn. It's about more than learning to do hard things. It's about more than trying new things. It's about more than understanding who you are. It's about uncovering all of the corners of yourself and learning to embrace parts of you that you didn't even know exist.
Mm. So one thing that I heard you say a lot there was discovering these hidden reasons about why you go outside. You talked about uncovering all the corners of yourself, learning things about yourself that you hadn't discovered previously. And I'm wondering if you yourself were surprised that this was an outcome of spending time outside every day. Was this a surprise to you?
Yeah, so when we moved here to Alaska, it was really to fix my husband. You know, I don't really
Mhm.
need fixing. I'm good. I'm here to fix other people. That's sort of my thing. I'm a big old other person fixer. And
Mm.
and when you came up here to Alaska, I had just really started spending time outside every day. I was just doing it for that summer. And I had fallen in love with Alaska, and I paraded you around and I introduced you to my boyfriend Alaska Summer, and and we had such a great time trying all of these new things. Um and I didn't know that I needed that. I didn't know that I was broken in those ways. I didn't know that, and I when I say broken those ways, I kind of had this catch in myself right when I said that I was like, oh, why are you minimizing yourself? Why are you saying that you're broken? Because you're not really broken, you're just growing. And there's a difference. And
Mm.
so I guess I want to retract that and say, I didn't know that I had growth to do. And that sounds really like obtuse to say, but I just was really in a place where I was so busy helping other people grow that I was not focused on myself. And so over these years of doing this, over almost 4 years, when this episode airs, of going outside every single day, I continually discover ways that I can grow, and ways that I have grown that I didn't even know were happening.
And that, I remember when you started doing the summer where you just wanted to spend 20 minutes outside every day during the summer.
Mm.
And that's really how you began the outdoor habit. And I think if I remember correctly, that's when it was easy, right? Or at least
Oh,
easier
so
to,
easy.
to muster to muster the determination to be outside with your boyfriend, Summer Alaska. And that challenge went well. You did it, and I think you have a collage of photos hanging in the wall of your office as proof that you did this thing. And the next thing you did after that was to challenge yourself to 20 minutes outside on the not so good and not so easy days. And watching your process has me thinking about incremental intention,
Hmm.
these small steps that build confidence and the muscle memory and the mental muster for the bigger steps ahead.
Hmm.
And I want you to talk to us about the importance of those incremental challenges.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've talked to people for this podcast who talk about this as well. It is a scientifically proven way to build grit and the ability to do hard things. And nature, they've told me, and I've experienced this myself firsthand, is great for that, right? Because it's going to constantly throw at you things that you didn't expect. You can't plan what's going to happen there. You can't. You can try to plan, right? Oh, I'm going to pick this day and this time because there's going to be good weather, or I'm going to go do this specific adventure because it's within my comfort zone. But that doesn't always work out. So nature is going to give you these challenges whether you like them or not. But the more you go out there and do them, the easier that challenge that you did become. So let's say you have never hiked up a certain distance before. Okay, so you hike that distance and it was hard. And then tomorrow you're thinking, oh, I'll hike that distance again because I know I've done it once. And now that distance seems easy. So you're ready to do a slightly longer distance. And that's just, you just sort of scale into these bigger and bigger things. And intentional or not, if you create a practice around going outside every day, nature is going to scale you in or drop you in the deep end, maybe sometimes, right? Whether you like it or not. As long as you've committed to this relationship with nature where you're out there and you're putting yourself in that space to say, okay, what's what's going to happen next? You're you're going to open the door to that, and you're going to have these big adventures and this opportunity to have that come to you as you have that intention to receive it. I think about when you and I were in Seward, where we're having our conversation today. Okay. So we did not want to meet a bear, like at all, right? But we somehow found ourselves on this incredibly wet hike, which I was thinking about today during my very wet run, because I think that was legitimately one of the last times I was quite this wet. I don't like being rained on, and so I kind of avoid this happening. But this was the only time I could run today, so here I was. Okay, but you and I went on this hike, and we got very wet. It was raining, and the bushes were very wet. And as we're hiking, there are these huge, I mean, humongous bear prints. Okay. And it was very
Indeed.
clear on this trail that this bear had been there not terribly long before us, because you could see where its paw prints had slipped in the mud just as we were. slipping in the mud.
Yes.
Right. And so we did not meet a bear, thank the Lord. But like we were sort of scaled into this possibility that that might happen. And had it
Mm.
happened, we would have handled it, and we would have, I mean, we were chatting up a storm. So I'm sure the bear was like, I'm out of here, too loud. But but you know, we were creating a space where we were literally putting ourselves out there, and you know, maybe going to encounter this thing that was outside of our comfort zone, and it would have been fine. But it was, you know, it was well outside our comfort zone to be quite that wet, and also and also to be seeing these bear prints. By the way, neither of us acknowledged that that was happening in the moment, which is kind of my favorite part of all of that.
Because if we acknowledged it, then it might be true.
That's
So it
right.
was best to just acknowledge it privately and talk about it later.
That's right.
So you've talked a couple of times about the hard times outside, and you mentioned it building grit.
Mm.
And also, I love this idea of nature scaling us into the challenge. And I want to know, how do those hard times outside, whether it be rain or an injury or bear paw prints or exhaustion, how do those hard times translate to your everyday inside life?
I think if you make a practice of doing hard things become easier no matter where you are. So if I'm tackling a long day at my job, I can remember a time that I had a long day on the trail, and whatever long day I'm doing at my desk pales, you know, the trail is much, much harder, right? So I can think, well, you know, I conquered this thing outside. I can be uncomfortable here. And it's just sort of like this endless supply of that. You wouldn't think that, you know, encountering a bear paw print on a trail um, directly translates to encountering a difficult coworker, right? Because both of those things could be stressful, but they're not at all the same. But it does, because what you're doing is you're building this fortitude within yourself to see a challenge and to know that you've got this, that you can move through this. And the outdoors is great for that, right? Like I am, no matter what I can handle at my desk, it's never going to be a bear print, okay, in the wilderness, with the potential of being eaten, only slightly dramatic, okay. um no matter what discomfort I have in my job, it's never going to be that I'm extremely cold because I work a desk job, you know. But I
Mhm.
know that I move through those other things, that I know how to handle discomfort, that I have done long days, that I have totally not gotten eaten by a bear, and I can do hard things. I can. It's not going to kill me to do this, you know, whatever thing that I don't want to do at work. That is in no way no way quite as scary as the things I've already done outside and faced and was totally fine with. You know, I my family and I went to Hawaii this winter, and it was lovely, and I made myself jump off of this cliff into the water, and I really didn't want to do it, and I was like literally standing up there shaking. Okay, wasn't even that high, but to get there, first of all, I had to climb up the cliff, and I noticed on the cliff there were these crabs that were black and kind of scary. And I determined immediately that they were like the spiders of the sea. Okay. And I hate spiders. So I'm already like, I'm all up in my head about that. I don't want to get touched by a sea spider. And then and then I climbed up the cliff, and I'm standing up there, and I'm just like, my adrenaline's going, and I'm just shaking, shaking, shaking. And I made myself jump off of it, and it was totally fine. You know, I like, it literally jumped off the cliff. Okay. I am so glad I did that. And I knew standing there that I was going to see this challenge, and I was going to move through it, and I was going to do the thing because it wasn't going to be that scary in the end. And I was going to be glad that I had made the effort. And how often does that happen in your job? How often does that happen with your family? That this thing is scary. I don't want to have this conversation. These people are on my last nerve. But I can take this moment. I can do the hard thing I don't want to do, and it's going to be worth it later. I just have to move through this. I have to jump off of this proverbial cliff.
And I think back that connects back to our earlier conversation
Mm.
about incremental intention. And maybe for some people listening, myself included, I'm thinking to myself as you're telling that story that there's really no way that I see myself jumping off of a cliff. And I think sometimes it can be easy for people to look at others. And since we're talking about your experiences outside, to look at some of your experiences and think, oh, I could never do that. But I think what we forget is that there was also a time when you wouldn't have done it
No.
either. And so can you dissect for us a little bit of your journey to get from hard no to talking yourself off the cliff, literally?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a journey of like scaling in, to those challenges like we were talking about earlier. When I was growing up, a camping adventure for us meant we went to the same cabin every year in the Sierra Nevada mountains where there was electricity and a microwave, and the bed in the master bedroom literally had the same exact JCPenney comforter on it, or maybe from Mervyn's, one of the two, that my parents had at home. Okay. Like this was not roughing it. And we packed up, we drove up there, we spent a week there. It was great. We had, my parents ate dinner every night at the lodge in this fancy restaurant. We had a great time. That was roughing it. And I specifically remember going to the campground where we had friends stay one time and being like, ew, this toilet is disgusting. Like it's not even a toilet, it's just like a hole. And it's scary. And there are spiders and some flies. And this isn't a very big no from me. I'm like just categorically not interested, too dirty. Um, and so, that was really my outdoor experience. We went hiking there. And then at home, I spent a lot of time on the beach. But when I came home from the beach, I was really required to make sure no sand entered my parents' house because my mother did not like sand. And you know what? I see her point. It's kind of annoying, but as an adult, I'm like, let's keep that on the outside. Okay. But she did not like going to the beach. We never, ever, ever, ever ate on the beach because who wants sand in their sandwiches? And that was really the extent of it. And then as I got older, I was still very much in that same line of thought. Like the outdoors is great. Look at the pretty flowers. Okay, back in the air conditioning. Good talk. Uh, and then I got married. And my husband, Luke, really wanted to spend time outside. And when you are in love with someone, you like to do the same things they do, right? Theoretically speaking. And so I started doing hiking and camping with him a little bit. But I have this very specific memory of going on this hike with him and our son. It was, I don't know, gosh, who even knows how long it was? Everything takes longer with a kid. It could have been 5 minutes. It could have been, 17 miles. Who can say? But we worked hard to get up to the top of this thing, that's for sure. And we get up there to this lake and there are flies. And I was like, nope, we're out of here. Like we did not linger over the view. The flies were freaking me out. Down we went. Okay. And it was sort of interactions with nature that way. So when he after he went to Afghanistan and came home, he expressed an interest in going camping with our kids and spending time outside. And I was like, oh, I don't think so. That sounds like sleeping outside. And sleeping outside sounds like it's not near my bed. And I'm really a hotel kind of person because they have beds and toilets there. So why would you not? What are you doing? Why would you do that? But I realized two things. A very wise mentor told me, if you don't go with them, they're going to go without you. And I did not like the sound of that at all because I wanted to spend time with my family. And I also realized when I gave it a chance that my husband was just sort of categorically a different person while he was outside. He was more relaxed. He seemed to be having a not as hard of a time dealing with stresses and that kind of thing. And we really didn't know very much about his injuries at that point, which are a traumatic brain injury and PTSD. But I could tell that nature changed him. And so, like I mentioned earlier, I started going outside for that guy. I was there to fix somebody else. But what I realized while I was out there is that the other person who felt more relaxed while we were camping was me. And I kind of liked it. I liked sitting by the fire and drinking my coffee. I liked staring at the fire. I liked staring at the lake. I liked sleeping in the tent. Weird. And the more I did it, the more I liked it. And guess what? The pit toilet wasn't so bad. There's like this guy who just drove by once a day and cleaned that sucker. And there was only a really, really, really huge spider in there one time. And you know, it didn't even jump on me, so it was fine. And it was the experiences like that where I was confronting my fears, whether I wanted to or not. Because that's really what it is, right? When we don't want to do something, it's because of like this innate fear that we're going to be uncomfortable, or at least for me, or that, you know, something bad's going to happen, something that we don't like. And every time you face those little tiny fears and prove that they're not true, it gets a little bit easier. And so when we decided that we really need to focus more on spending more time outside, again, to fix my husband, we thought about, you know, moving away from Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where we were, and we decided to move up here to Alaska. And I really have this flair for the dramatic, as I'm sure you know. And so moving to Alaska seemed like a really good story, you know, like, let's do that. That's a flare. And so that's really why I said yes, because I thought it would be a good adventure. And I never really thought about it as a way for me to spend more time outside. But after a year up here, I realized that I was living in a place where I had all of this really awesome access to nature, and I was still stuck in the when we camp, we have a plan, and we got, you know, I don't really want to go to the bathroom in the woods, and I don't like being uncomfortable, and I don't want to be cold, and I hadn't faced those specific fears. And so I looked at the outdoor challenge, is 20 minutes outside a day, as a way to incrementally face different things I didn't like about Alaska, right? If I could do anything for 20 minutes, you know, like, okay, it's really cold. Well, you can be out there for 20 minutes, and guess what? It's going to be a cool photo, and it's a good story, and you faced a fear. And the more I did that, the more I found that I was facing those little discomfort fears, and that they weren't as scary as they were before. You know, and you do that enough, that's how you end up on the cliff. That's how you end up there jumping. And I mean, I'll tell you where I am right now, right? So I mentioned the flies earlier on that hike, and I mentioned that because that's still a thing that I don't like. I don't know what it is, but it makes me panic having a lot of flying insects all around my head and my shoulders. Like, I'm sitting here like, oh, just giving out. I feel like I'm being swarmed. I don't know, maybe I saw a scary movie or something. Right now, my practice is I'm working like actually really hard and very intentionally to still wear bug spray, but also if I am in a situation where that's happening, to be very like meditative about it and say, okay, I am here and the flies are here and we are all here together, and that's okay. You know, and also let's leave now, but not like in a panic kind of way, right? In a more like in a way that's okay. Like, I don't have to sit here and be uncomfortable with this. I don't have to let this go on, but I also don't have to panic in a way that shuts down my ability to even function. And so it's a work in progress, you know. I'm like, today, I told you I was wet running. I hate being rained on, but I needed to go on a run and it was raining. And I was like, all right, well, there's really only one way to do this, and it's to go out the door and be wet. So that's how it's going to go. And guess what? I didn't melt. I'm not the Wicked Witch of the West, as it turns out. Hey humans, just a quick break to ask for a huge favor. If you're loving this episode, could you take a second to give us 5 stars or a great rating and review in whatever podcast platform you use? Those ratings help other humans find the podcast too, and spread that humans outside love around the world. I can't thank you enough for listening and sharing your support through a rating and review. Now, back to the episode.
The thing that I was thinking about while you were talking is the power of story, which I know is something that's particularly special to you and I because we are journalists and we are trained to tell other people's story. And I think a byproduct of that is that we sometimes view our own lives as a story, and maybe even thinking about the legacy that we're leaving, the story that our lives are telling each day as they unfold. And I think also because of this, we also are pretty active in the stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves. And so there are specific stories that I say about myself, like I am not an athlete, or I'm not athletic, but I'll go outside and go for a hike. And these are some of the tapes that play in my head over and over. And I think this story can be held accountable to the actions that I take outside, right? So take, for instance, the story that I tell myself that I am not an athlete. And yet I can go and do these athletic things outside, right? Like I can
Right.
go for an 11-mile hike, or I can go kayaking for several hours, which is something that someone who is not an athlete would have a more difficult time doing. So I think there are these stories that we put on repeat in our heads that help solidify sort of the myths that we create about ourselves. And with you and the habit and this really wanting to be intentional about spending time outside, were you thinking back in 2017, were you thinking about recreating your story and the story that you were telling yourself about your own capabilities and power, and also the story that you were projecting to the people around you, your family, friends, and people who were following you through Humans Outside?
Yeah, I think that the story changed itself. I was when I started the Humans Outside website, I had a tagline on there that you made me think of just now. Um, Indoor, something like indoor girl in an outdoor world or something like that, right? Like that was the story I told myself, that this was all an experiment and I'm not outdoorsy. And this website is about me not being outdoorsy. But I think that we could both agree, like, that's not true. I am
Right.
outdoorsy,
Mhm.
right? Like I'm probably more outdoorsy than most people I know at this point, just because I spend so much time outside.
You are
And
the you are the most outdoorsy person I know, for sure.
yeah. So, but even right then, when I was like, I don't know, maybe I am outdoorsy. Okay. Right. Like that's the story I tell myself, that I'm not really that outdoorsy. When I think, yeah, like we just agreed, that's not true. Okay. So I think the beauty of spending so much time outside is that the story changes itself for you. And it's what we talked about earlier, where nature's going to give you what it has. It's not going to go on your plan. It's not going to stick to your script. It's going to do whatever it's going to do, and you're not in control. The end. And so whatever story you're telling yourself about who you are just got thrown out, because if you give yourself to this unknown, and if you present yourself to all the possibilities that exist when you head outside, whether you have a plan or not, you're going to have the narrative changed, and you're going to have to take it as it comes. And isn't that the best part? Because like you said, we're journalists, right? We love a good story. Well, nothing is, this is something a podcast guest, Max Stormy, told me a couple of seasons ago. I think in season 2, they're starting to blend together, guys. This is how many episodes I've done. But one of the things he said was, like, nature is the best storyteller out there. Nothing is going to be wilder than what nature can throw at us. Anything that you've imagined is going to be outdone by whatever the mountains have for you today. And I just think that that is such a tantalizing offer. So throw some quirky people in the mix, and boy, howdy, it gets real fast.
Oh, yes, absolutely. There's also a time when the story doesn't work in my favor, like when I'm writing the headlines of my demise.
Yes, you and I both have the
I
narrator. I was recently told that not everyone has an internal narrator, but you and I both have a narrator who's like a nature documentary in our heads. And we
Yes.
say, we're going for a hike and it's going to be dry. And the narrator says, it would not in fact be dry. So yeah.
I'm not sure if I told you this, but my husband, for his birthday this year in May, he told me that he wanted to go on a hike and that he wanted it to be dry and flat. So the hike, as I'm rolling through the Rolodex of hikes in my head, the hike that I chose required that we cross a river uphill. He definitely fell in the river. And he looked up at me and he was like, I'm not dry. It's like, no, you're not. And we are now hiking uphill. So
Yeah.
here's your flat birthday hike.
That's right. The narrator says it would not in fact be dry or flat. But you know what? The narrator is great because he has a great time on my outdoor adventures. Because the other story I tell myself, and I actually think that this one is real, that this is actually correct, is that I am just this constant comedy of errors. And part of that is because, again, nature's going to throw at you whatever it's going to throw at you. And however prepared you are is fine, except that's not going to work out probably. And so the narrator just has a field day with me because all the things that can go wrong, as they do for anyone. So there's like the time Luke and I went on our first backpacking trip where we get up above, well, when we got there, there was a lot of really low cloud cover on this particular ridge line. And we should have said to ourselves, I wonder how the snow looks up there, but that we cannot say. But we did not say that. And instead we hiked up there only to find there was a lot of snow, and we turned around and came back to the car. I mean, it was really ended up being a day hike with very heavy packs. Okay. But when we got down to the car, we found in the car our dinner that we had not packed in our bags. And yeah, and I stood there and the narrator's laughing, ha ha ha, and I'm like imagining how this would have gone later, which is like we would have trudged through the snow instead of turning around because we were obstinate and not that smart. And then we would have been really, really hungry because we worked so hard. And then we would have sat down to have this meal and it would not have been in our bags. And I would have cried a lot. That's how that was going to go. So, it's still a good story. See how I did that, right? Didn't even happen and I can make a good story out of it.
So for me, there has never been a hike that I've regretted or time outside that felt wasted. But that doesn't mean that it's not hard sometimes
Sure.
to take that first step.
Sure.
And so I want you to tell us about the days where it's hard to get outside and what are the pep talks that you're giving yourself?
Well, I mean, it's just what you just said, right? Like, Amy, have you ever regretted even one time going out? No. Have you ever been sorry? No. All right. Like, then what are you doing? Okay, you're gonna go outside. And then I'll tell you, it's the hardest in the winter, right? When it's super cold and you have to put on all the layers and you're just like pressed for time and it's dark and you just don't want to, right? The inside is warm and inside is where your TV show is. And that sounds good. Okay. And the coffee, right? You and I love the coffee. So the coffee and the TV show are on the inside, and then on the outside is -5 degrees, windy, and the requirement to find a lot of articles of clothing you're not quite sure where they went. Okay. So which one do you want to do? So you have to be like, okay, like I'm always glad I did it. All right, here we go. And you bundle up and you make it happen. And then the second thing with that is that if you're going to make that much effort to go outside, it better be worth it. Like you better be going to do something that's not going to be stupid. That's not going to be just box checking, because I'll tell you what makes it, it's not that you regret it. It just isn't as great as it could be. And so on those days, I take an extra beat to make sure that once I'm out there, it's worth it, that I am being intentional, that I am looking around me, that I am taking in whatever scenery there is. Let's say I really am pressed for time. I only have this 25 minutes. And even if I wanted more, even if I didn't have this 25 minutes, it is so dang cold that I don't want more than that. I'm using that 25 minutes to really look at the trees and the way the snow is on them, or the leaves and the way they're on the ground. Or I'm, if I have more time, I'm making sure that I do something that I enjoy. Like I'm putting on the ski boots and getting the cross country skis and carrying them up the hill and trying not to die on the way there on the ice, and on and on and on. And that's always worth it too, And so that's the pep talk you give. Like, I know the steps to make this worth it. And I know that I've never regretted this once. So therefore, I'm going to do it. It's like, if you really wanted to go out instead of going to bed, but you have a big meeting right bright and early in the morning, you know that the denying yourself that little bit of pleasure or that immediate reward to go out and have a good time is going to be something that you won't regret tomorrow, because you made the decision you know is best, and you stayed home and you went to sleep. Same
Mhm.
kind of concept, right? You've made the practice of going outside, you know the risk is worth the reward, so you do it. And that solidifies the fact that going outside is worth the reward, so you do it. And on and on and on. And the more you do that, the more it layers on until it's undeniable. I know that going outside is worth it, so I'm going to go outside. The end.
We know that you are raising two boys in Alaska, and you know that I'm raising a 3-year-old outside mostly. We spend a lot of time outside, we spend a lot of time hiking. And it's given me a glimpse into the challenge, really, of having an active lifestyle outside with a toddler. And I wonder if you could give us some insight as to how to have this outdoor life with kids and how you make them part of that, and also making sure that everyone's having fun.
Yeah. Lower your expectations. And bring snacks. Those are the two things. In fact, that those both apply to adults as well. So, um, yeah, I think that when it comes to being outdoors with kids, it really is about lowering your expectations to what makes success. In my head, we're traipsing around the world, having these big adventures, camping overnight. Well, my kids don't necessarily want to do that, right? They're exhausted. They've played really hard, and they're living their best lives, but their best lives are not mine right now. And so I have to adjust what I expect to be doing or expect to be experiencing, and set it instead on what's going to enrich them. And as they grow and get older, those two things meet in the middle. Also, I discover, as I adjust my expectations, that there's a reward that I didn't see coming in not doing the big thing. There's a reward in just spending that time lingering over this pile of leaves or this giant stick, or in watching Huck dig a hole again. This kid can dig a hole. Okay. He's a hole digger, and it gives me no joy, but he really likes it. So I patiently wait for him to dig his hole. And I think, maybe there's a career here. Who can say? But I adjust my expectations. And then the second thing is to really think through what's going to make this a pleasant experience. So I said, bring snacks. The other part of that is, for both you and your kids, you want to make sure that you're comfortable. So is that a good pair of rain pants and a rain jacket, and then layers underneath it? Because when you're getting rained on, you're usually cold as well, unless you live in somewhere very humid. But I always forget that if I'm getting rained on, I want to have a nice warm sweatshirt underneath that as well. Or if you're in the wintertime, does everyone have hand warmers? Does everyone have warm enough pants and hats and gloves and all that stuff? And my goodness, it's a lot of gear to keep track of. But being comfortable really makes a big difference, because if you think about the times that you don't want to be outside, it's probably because you're uncomfortable, and it's probably because you're hungry. And so as some snacks really goes a long way. I mean, I can't recommend that enough.
That's funny that you mentioned that, because we just spent a month in the Smoky Mountains,
Hmm.
and we hiked a lot. And every day that my daughter and I would be out, I would pack a lunch for her in her lunchbox and have her juice ready and snacks, a lot of snacks. And one day when we were out on the trail, I had this thought that this is an intention,
Hmm.
right? This isn't something that I woke up that morning and just decided to wing it, right? Not that's not to say that we haven't had those hikes too, but this is something that I had planned the night before, that I knew the hike we were going to do. I knew what to expect. And I knew what I needed to bring for her to be happy, which means that I would be happy.
Mm-hmm.
So that planning goes a long way. And I also loved what you said about giving them the moments that they need to experience and explore nature in the way that is fulfilling for them, which is not the same as is fulfilling for us.
No,
But
I took my kids to Homer, where you and I also went. Okay, but you and I like dropped in there, and then we were like out, right? We were just
yeah.
like, okay, check, done. All right. Well, I love Homer now. That was the first time I'd been there when you and I went. I've taken my kids back several times. We camped right where you and I camped, right on the spit. So it's like this land's literally the end of the land. Okay, and there's this beach area, and the thing to do is to camp right there on the beach. It's awesome. So I've taken my kids to do that. And I had this really sort of epic day plan. We were going to get on a ferry. We were going to ferry across the bay. We were going to go to this cute little town. We were going to pick some berries. Like I had it all planned out. And I also had planned that we were going to go get coffee and get a pastry and like all these things before the boat time. Boy, no. So I overscheduled us. Okay. I was not on time. Somebody had a bathroom emergency. Even if he hadn't had a bathroom emergency, we still would have been late for the boat. Okay. And my kids are all psyched to get on this ferry. I paid all this money for it. Didn't happen. Like they're like, the boat's gone, sister, goodbye. And I sat on this bench and I literally cried. Like I had this like perfect vision for this day. That didn't happen. And so after I pulled myself together and got another coffee, we spent the day instead. We went to a park. We walked along the beach. Like it went from being like action packed to nothing, no plans. And it was arguably the best day we had there because I changed my expectations to see things through their eyes and, due to lack of other options. Right. And we had this really wonderful day where I just watched them play and they had a great time. Also, side note, I almost got pooped on by this. I mean, like, it had to have been the world's biggest seagull. Okay. So I'm walking. It's become like this family lore now. I'm walking and I hear this giant splat, like paint falling from the sky, guys. Okay. And I look around and there's this huge bird crap on the floor, on the ground, right next to my feet, like missed me by 6 inches. Okay. And I looked at my kids and I said to them, just remember, no matter how bad things are, you didn't get crapped on by a bird. And this has now become the family saying, like, no matter what, the bird didn't crap on you. And so, you know, practical lessons from that day as well. I did not get crapped on by that bird. And it was, let me say, danger close. And that would have been disgusting. So
that reminds me that yesterday I was attacked by a bird
oh my,
who attacked my head
what?
twice. Yes.
Rude.
I think it
Why?
was protecting its nest. I think it had a nest that I walked underneath. How dare I? And it attacked my head
What
twice.
kind of bird was
And
this?
I didn't see the bird. My husband didn't. He said it was small and brown. That's all I know.
I like that. You had to be reminded that this happened. That's the best part. That reminds me, yesterday I was attacked by a bird. I believe that's a direct quote.
Hey, you know how life. Yesterday was a long time ago, Amy.
True.
So I'm curious to know how you would describe your relationship with nature and with the outside.
I think of us as partners, and I think of it as my teacher. So it lets me it partners with me to teach me things. Maybe that's a good description. Um, you know, we we spend a lot of time together. And so it's not, schooling me all the time, right? But when I need a lesson, it's given it. Um, I also think of nature as my, oh gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Sanctuary. It's a place that I can escape.
Mm.
I know to expect the unexpected, as we've been talking about, but I also know that there are rules there, that it will always act in the realm of what nature does. It's never going to uh do things that humans do, whether purposely or accidentally, right? Like betray you or whatever, right? It's always going to be consistent in that way. So while it does change, while you have to expect the unexpected, that's within a realm of certain possibilities. And so you have a set of expectations within that ever-changing landscape. I don't know if that makes sense.
It, it does make sense. I think what you were saying earlier too, I think connects to this, that there are certain things that you can expect from your time outside, in addition to being prepared for the unexpected, and for the ways that nature is going to scale the lesson that day that it wants to teach.
Yeah.
Um, so at the end of your conversations with your guests, you ask them three questions. And so I'm going to ask you those three questions now. And I'm really excited because I want to learn from you, as you answer these questions. So, what is your favorite outdoor gear item?
Okay, I too have learned from my guests. And my favorite items are actually things that I have been introduced to by guests on this show. So I'm excited to rehash. Okay, so my favorite outdoor gear item is actually the thing we call the pants, capital T, capital P. Okay, and they are a pair of puffy pants. The one specifically recommended by the first guest who talked about this, Kate Arnold, is a pair from Mont Blanc, which is a outdoor gear maker. Mine are from Black Diamond. My husband has a pair now. They're from Mountain Hardwear. So lots of places to get these. They are essentially puffy, like a puffy jacket, but in pants format. And boy, are they wonderful. You feeling cold? You a little chilly? Just put on the pants, buddy. Instant warmth. And this has become such a fan favorite of my friends and I that we now all own them, except for Claire, one of my running wives, who is a conscientious objector to owning the pants. Purposely, I might add. She does not own the pants. She will tell you with pride. But I think we underestimate how much heat we lose through our legs. Like we're so busy thinking about keeping our core warm and our arms warm and our hands warm and our feet warm and you got to put a hat on that we forget, like, if you keep your legs warm, that's the whole puzzle, bud. And they are so great and I love them. I love the pants. I wear them in the summer. I wear them in the winter. They're a year-round gear item. They're great.
So I'm going to ask this question because I'm from Texas, where puffy pants probably wouldn't be a thing
That's true.
in Texas. So are you wearing something underneath them as
Yeah,
well?
usually. Yeah, they are like they are designed to slip over whatever you have on. And so we take them camping, and in the evening, if I'm chilly, or in the morning when I get up, if it's like 50 or whatever, I'll put them on for, I don't know, like an hour. And then if I'm hot, just take them off. I would not recommend wearing them without something underneath them because you do get kind of like, they're just like a sleeping bag material. So if your legs get sweaty, it gets kind of clammy in there. That's not nice. No one wants clammy legs. Gross.
And what is your most essential outdoor gear item?
Okay, so like I said, another thing I was introduced to, and I'm excited because I'm also having on the show the founder of this particular product, but it is a Kula cloth. And if you haven't heard of what a Kula cloth is, it is essentially a a pee rag. It is a pee rag designed for backpacking, specifically with women in mind. It's a 6-inch piece of fabric. One side is absorptive, which is a hard word for me to say, or absorbent. That's the word.
That's the word.
Yeah. And the other side is like pattern, like it's like a water resistant, like, kind of looks pretty. It's got artwork on it, whatever, or a funny cat joke, whatever. And then it snaps to your backpack or whatever you want to put it on. And the idea is that you use this when you go to the bathroom. If you're a woman, you know that going to the bathroom outside is complicated, because if you're hauling toilet paper, you're probably now hauling out dirty toilet paper. If you aren't, you're dripping dry, and nobody likes that. That just leads to chafing long term. I mean, it's complicated, right? So having this particular product, it's called Kula Cloth, solves that problem. And they are probably the funniest Instagram feed for a product that I follow. They're great. So that's my most essential. I mean, I only started using one this summer after hearing a lot about it. And I have to say, life-changing, just mind blown.
And what is your favorite outdoor moment ever? This is a time that you close your eyes and this is the thing that you did outside that gives you joy. Where are you and what are you doing in that moment?
Yeah, so I am standing on a mountaintop about halfway through a day of running and hiking with some friends. It is a beautiful, perfect sunny day in Alaska. The air is probably around 65 degrees, but the sun is really warm. And we are standing on this mountaintop, literally this peak of this mountain, looking out at just this vast landscape of green and more mountains. And we are literally the only people in our line of sight, or it feels like the only people in the whole world. We are out there in the middle of nowhere. There's no one else. And we have this feeling of our context among the mountains and how small we are, but also this feeling of how large we are in this moment as we've conquered these peaks and as we are standing as what seems to be the only women in the whole world on top of a mountain. And it is something that I envision quite a lot.
Amy, this is a unique opportunity that you have to speak directly to your Humans Outside podcast listeners. And I'm wondering, what would you like to say to them directly?
Yeah, so this is my 4 years of outside anniversary, and I am feeling very grateful for the gifts that spending time outside has given me. And I am feeling very grateful for the people who have joined me in this journey, such as yourself, Holly, and the people who follow along, who have given me their time and their attention. And so I think that my message today is one of gratitude and thanks that you have spent time listening to me, and that you have spent time following your journey, and then thanks to the outdoors for giving me these tremendous gifts. Well, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Humans Outside. If you've enjoyed this episode, why not give us a little love and leave a rating and review to make it easier for other listeners to find the podcast too. It really does make a difference. Until next time, we'll see you out there.